Hello, I'm Ken Coomes, and welcome to another episode of TV Toastmasters. In this case, our segment is The Right Stuff. And tonight, I have with me Justin and Sara Lester, and we're going to talk about the conversion of the written word into audiobooks. Welcome. I'm glad you could make it tonight, Justin.
Thank you. Really
Sara?
good to be here.
Hello.
So tell me how you got into this. Well, first, tell me a little bit about yourselves. Who are you, and where do you come from, and what's going on?
I am Justin.
Okay.
I come from California originally
Okay.
and moved to the great state of Oregon and never looked back. So green and beautiful. I like to write a little bit
Okay.
when I can give myself the freedom to create in that way.
Okay. What do you like to write?
I'm more into telling stories about our world, but in the genre of fantasy.
Okay.
Is what I've written before. Over the years, my voice has changed. The things I care about have changed, and the way I like to tell stories changed. But being formed through my experiences growing up, I learned a lot through reading fantasy books mainly, and so it stuck with me. I like that method of storytelling.
What about you, Sara?
I am pretty much into whatever Justin's into. He's introduced me to a lot of interesting aspects of life. The recent one, though, is of audiobooks, and that one's pretty exciting for me.
So either one of you, how did you get into this? Then it's exciting and you got interested, but what drove you to get into it?
Well, I learned from a friend of mine who wrote a series of zombie books,
Okay.
and he had them turn into audiobooks. And I'm not a big fan of the zombie genre or horror in general. It's never really been my thing, but I had respect for him, and I know it's really popular. Anyway, when he told me he had a hard time selling his books until he made them into audiobooks, and at that point, my memories from business school kicked in, and I asked all these questions. Well, how do you create this? How do you scale it? And it was pretty powerful because his sales jumped like fivefold as soon as he went in the audiobook realm, and then it grew from there.
Ah.
And when he told me the producers of the books made just as much money as he did as the author, I started wondering if I can get involved in the producing of it and how hard it was. So I did some homework, and I'd asked him, well, did your sales of hard copy books go down? Was it a trade-off? And he assured me that no, it was a different audience, and he just loved it. It transformed his life. He was able to stop punching a clock and doing what he did and just create and be an artist and still get paid for it, not be a starving artist. And so I started dipping my toe into it and seeing if it was possible, and it sure is. And we're still not quite to the point where we're stopping punching a clock, but we're scaling it in a model that my business professors would be happy about, and getting to the point where we bring in teams and start to create more and more audiobooks that I could ever create by myself or us as a team. And anyway, that's how I got started in it. I learned from a friend who was successful almost on accident.
Is that the way you got started, following along with Justin, or were you in audiobooks already or in some other related field?
I was actually trying to be a photographer, and I had done a few weddings and stuff like that, but when he introduced the audiobooks, his friend introduced me to that, and I realized they're not that far off from each other. One is obviously visual and the other one is audio, but yeah, there's a lot of buttons. You got to figure out which ones do what, but I have a very good ear for that.
He does.
So that's where we go into a good partnership, because he is good at creating teams, and I'm more of the behind the scenes and making sure it's all smooth.
I'm definitely weaker in the editing phase of it, and she's awesome. She knocks it out of the park.
It's a blast.
So that's a specific part of the team is audio editing. What is your specific part of the team or role?
Well, I used to love acting when I was younger,
Okay.
and so I play the role of the voice actor, and I also, like I said, I'm dabbling in creating the content, but my best role that I bring to this enterprise really is more about seeing the vision of what it could be, and then trying to create an opportunity, because there's a lot of people who want to write more, or when we tell them about creating audiobooks, they get all excited about maybe getting behind the microphone and making the story come alive. But maybe they're intimidated by the editing part, or maybe they just don't know how the whole system works. So we're trying to create an opportunity where people can come in and just do what suits their strengths. If there's a voice actor, they can come in and be a voice actor, and we'll do the other part. We'll partner them with an editor and do all the negotiations with Amazon or the other places that we deal with, and make it easy for people to get involved and enjoy the fun of it, and if they want to keep pressing forward and make a little bit of money from it, or maybe if they really love it and learn and press in, there's a possible career here for anyone. It's a really low barrier to entry compared to a lot of other things you can do with your time.
Cool. So you sort of have the vision for the project and putting the team together and finding out what the people's strengths are, so they can do what they're good at and avoid what they're not so strong at. Somebody else can pick up the slack there.
Exactly.
Sounds
Putting
like.
a system together so
Okay.
that when we master how it works as one unit, then we're able to scale it and open the doors for anyone to try their hand at it for a little bit of time or a lot of time.
So for non-voice actors who write and find their strength in writing, do they come to you with a manuscript that you turn into a script, or do they come to you and show you what they have and you guide them through making a script? Or how does that whole work?
Well, sometimes they have a script already done, and as you might know, that how you read a book is different from how you would act it out. When I'm sitting here reading a book and it'll say Mary shouted, if I'm telling that story, it's better to just have Mary shout rather than shout and then the narrator say Mary shouted. However, some of the audiobooks out there are just read like a narrative. But what we find, the ones that we enjoy the most are the ones that just feel natural and feel like the storyteller element, where you're sitting with a group of people, like when we were growing up and our parents might have been reading a book to us, or someone just making a story come alive. Those are the ones that we're more inspired by and like to create ourselves.
Looks like you had something to add to that.
Well, I was just thinking there were a few times while we're editing, one of our partners would be like, what if we did this, or what if we did that? And it was interesting to hear their side of how they saw it in their imagination. And your imagination is so powerful, so if we can bring everybody together with their imaginations, then we can make it really, really pop. And that was exciting.
Collaboration.
Yeah.
So I view it as taking advantage of the medium. The audio medium is different than the written word.
Yes.
So if you're going to take advantage of it, you're going to get rid of that dialogue attribution, as you said. And if Mary shouts, she's going to shout.
Exactly.
And you're not going to say she shouted, and that makes it come alive more.
Exactly.
And then you have probably background noises as well, I'm assuming. So you can bring the whole environment and wrap it around those characters.
Those are the audiobooks we love.
What about the different characters? Do you have a team of people that have different accents and voices for the ensemble of actors, let's say?
Yes, some of our favorite voice actors are the ones who work in theater,
Okay.
usually, because it tends to be the actors that are the best at acting. And we have one that's a karaoke champion. He's just starting to get involved. He's expressed a lot of interest, and so we're letting him try his hand at it. Another friend who's a Toastmasters award winner, he has a big theater background. But we're honestly, we're somewhat at the beginning stages, and we're still building these teams. So we've had a lot of interest expressed from just our small circle of friends whenever we talk about it. There's usually one or two people that are with us when we talk about it, that you see the sparkle in their eye. But as we're starting to dial down the systems and starting to get to the point where we're able to scale it, we're seeing that there's a lot of people that want to try their hand, and there's a lot of talent out there that are just have a little bit of fear to get involved, and we're trying to push back that fear point. Which it reminds me of something you said about, was it Picasso?
Oh yeah,
and his fear?
Picasso. Yeah, I read something about how Picasso had created over 50,000 paintings or something like that, and how we only recognize about 100 of them. And so that's not even 1% of what he created. And so many people are so scared to put one little thing out, and we're trying to encourage, come on, let's work as a team, let's all do it together, and we'll all win from it.
Somewhat of a numbers game. It's maybe the fact that he painted so many paintings that we never saw or
Right.
never maybe would want to see was why he got good enough that he influenced the world. And we may have that same power that'll never be seen if you don't get out there and write 50,000 words in November or something to push ourselves into those creative muscles and get the creative strength built up and maybe influence the world that we live in. And maybe not, maybe just have some fun and do some scribbles.
Right. Well, again, it's an art form. It's a different art form. I'm glad that you have dipped your toes in the water and even more perhaps and are seeking to broaden that and make it available to more people. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. So thank you. This has been the first half of The Right Stuff.
Speak in public? I'd rather be burned at the stake. At least that's how I used to feel, until Toastmasters. I went online and found a club that met every week at lunchtime, and they were close to my office, so it worked out great. I was really scared when I started, but no one pressured me to speak or pushed me to do anything I wasn't ready for. I felt safe, and I realized it was okay to be nervous and to make mistakes, because these people were going to support and encourage me no matter what. And now, well, let's just say things have changed. I speak in front of large groups, lead all-day seminars, and conduct presentations to top executives. Toastmasters changed my life.
There are over 100 Toastmasters clubs meeting all around the Portland, Vancouver area, near your office, home, or even your school. We meet on all days of the week, morning, noon, and night. Our clubs couldn't be more convenient or affordable at under $10 a month. Visit a couple locations and find the one that's just right for you. All the information you need is at Toastmasters.org.
Welcome back to The Right Stuff. I'm Ken Coomes with TV Toastmasters, and we're talking to Justin and Sara Lester this time in this episode, talking about converting to audiobooks. So our second half is about to begin. Again, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
So we've talked about this process and how you want people to take that step, not be afraid, because you start somewhere. It's a story, or it's a chapter, or it's a sentence or a paragraph, and you build, right? Do they bring to you a partial manuscript at times, or a full manuscript, or come to you and ask for advice before they've written much?
We have had that experience. We're because of that, we're hoping to try to develop what might be a new genre. We're calling it sparsely edited content, where we try to encourage just something closer to the free flow of consciousness, where people can maybe in the spirit of like a short story, just get something out there and to not have as much invested in it, but get it out there fast. And with that, we ask them to give us the power to edit it as well. And then we'll also let the customer know that the audiobook that they're consuming is more raw, more off the cuff, and then also cheaper for that reason. So it would be easier to get them out and maybe just get our titles up there and get some titles under people's belt. And those short stories, the sparsely edited stories, might lead to something bigger. Someone might want to develop a character, because you as a writer know that when you start working on a character, sometimes they take on a life of their own and they go places you didn't expect. And so we're just hoping to use that little bit of power to create maybe a genre that pushes writers into getting their stuff out there in a less risky way. Because sometimes I will try to edit a thing over until it's like beating a dead horse.
Well, it's back to something that you said, Sarah. So you talked about the idea that maybe someone else will come up with an idea when they hear something.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if an author gets started, or an actor, a voice actor, you start somewhere, and then the different minds collaborate, the team collaboration you've mentioned, and it builds, right?
That's what I love about it, is that the communication is going to always be open between the author and the editor and the sound person and all the elements that are involved. So anybody can have an idea and bring it to the table. And that's the part that I love about it, because anybody can say, hey, what about this?
It started
Works.
leaking over into our relationship, where we'll watch a movie, and maybe we don't like the ending or we don't like a certain part of it. So we'll stop and be like, okay, if you were the author, how would you do it differently? What direction could we have taken it? And that's the same way you could take a story that kind of inspired you and change it a little bit, make it your own, and go in a different direction, maybe a different time period, maybe a different set of characters, maybe make the main character a different gender, and run it through that, and create a whole new story that maybe the world needs to hear, but wouldn't if you didn't take it and run with it.
It's an interesting point, because Stephen King, in his book on writing, he talks about starting somewhere and you're like an archaeologist, and you're unearthing the bones of the story. So he gives a writing the only exercise in the book, the only writing exercise in the whole book. He says he sets a stage, but then he asks the reader for the exercise. In the stage he sets, there's a main character who is, the man is dealing with, the wife is dealing with a man who's abusive, and goes away and comes back and she's afraid, kind of, and what does she do? He says, flip it around. What if the wife was sent away somehow and she's coming back and the man's afraid? So flip it around and think about that and go in that different perspective, kind of what you were talking about. But I have to ask, because I know some writers that have issues with their editors even, because they're in love with their words. Have you run into that, and how does that play out?
I haven't yet, and maybe we've been lucky. Maybe it's because we talk about it so much going in, but it's coming, and it's worth the risk. And, at the end of the day, the story belongs to the author, but maybe a part of what protects us as well is it's in the contract when we work with an author that we have the ability to make certain changes, but we haven't stepped over that line to the point where we've offended anybody yet. But I know it's coming, because it's just hard to get any two people to line up, and especially as we work with more and more people, it's bound to come. But we have the contract to protect us, but we want those relationships more than we want contracts.
What I hear is a lot of collaborative mood and atmosphere where there's the chance to creatively grow, and everybody benefits, especially the end consumer of the creative product that's produced. So it seems to me that if someone were having an issue with that, they're probably missing an opportunity. The way you two talk, I feel like if I were having an issue, that you would be talking with me and we'd be able to work through it, because I feel that kind of embrace and support. So hats off to you for that.
Okay.
And I think that'll work well. If you do run into that, I think your own natural tendencies will help a lot.
I hope so.
Well, that's a big thing, is that if an author feels a certain way about how this character is going to sound or how this paragraph is going to sound, they have the right to say that.
Of course.
But if we say, well, what if we can do this? And they're like, no, then okay, it's still your book.
Right.
It's still your creation. So it's really what you want to do with it. But like you said, we'll sit down and get a really good grasp on what you're really trying to portray on the book.
And if you understand that, then the different ideas about how to best portray it might work synergistically instead of confrontationally.
Exactly.
Yeah, Sarah will bring something in that achieves the goal that I would never have thought of. Different sounds, or you hear the train going by in the background.
So when you mentioned sparsely edited, it sounded to me like you might have been talking about the audio product would be sparsely edited, would be sort of raw, and that's what you tell the consumers of that product. What about the raw source that comes to you before it's converted to audio?
That's the part we were calling sparsely edited.
Okay.
Because if it's a shorter story, then the editing, we can still give the editing the attention it deserves. But we're trying to just spark what turns into a flood of creativity, and shake the bushes and see what falls out, and hopefully just inspire some creative talent that otherwise would have never got any writing out there and got it out into the realm of being produced. And that's what we're hoping for that the initial writing would be more raw is the
Okay.
idea. And then we would, like some of the pilots, you see some of the actors that we enjoy, they just ad-lib it. They take a script and they'll go wherever, and it ends up being some of the best stuff that people love to watch. We're hoping to make it the same type of thing where we empower the voice actors to take an idea and run with it a little bit, and still get the idea from that source of creativity.
Well, the actors, the acting professionals, we use the term actors for females too these days instead of actress, I believe, but the actors on the silver screen bring that character to life, often by going off script and make it more natural and real, and they interpret. So that sounds what you're talking about with the voice actors as well.
Exactly. That realm would give the freedom to create to both the writers and the actors.
Would you say that freedom and that collaboration is part of what makes a good audiobook as opposed to a bad one, or what would you earmark as the signs of a good or a bad audiobook?
Well, it depends. Sometimes the books that I love the most aren't necessarily the ones that just kind of go wild, but the ones where someone creates a really well-detailed world. So some of the best books that I enjoy maybe are more structured and have the work has been put in, but it depends on how I'm feeling. If I want something that's just wild and is going to take me to an unpredictable place, they have their place. But I would cast my vote for the Tolkien or the authors who create a world that they thought everything out, and you can go down any trail and they've thought it out. They may have spent 20, 30 years building that world.
Or the C.S. Lewis, you mentioned the
C.S.
Chronicles
Lewis.
of Narnia earlier.
Yeah.
What do you like to read or convert to audiobooks the best, Sarah?
I do a little of my own poetry. I'm not going to go into that too much.
Okay.
But I've heard some audiobooks in the past that have just stuck with me since I was a little girl.
Okay.
And the biggest one was the Ten Commandments, and they had the frogs chirping in the background, and Pharaoh was all distraught, and it's just the way that they acted it out, I felt like I was there. And with all of those details, that's what I'm trying to also include in all of the editing, and I don't want to overlook anything, so it's anybody who has an idea, like, let's bring it all to the table, because I want to recreate that, because it affected me.
Cool. That's a good motivation as well.
Definitely.
A good memory you have, it sounds
Yeah.
like, as well also. So if people wanted to know more about you, the two of you, and your work that you're doing, wanted to perhaps contribute in some way, providing a manuscript or providing a voice or whatever, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Our website, so we'll throw our contact email
Okay.
up there, but we're redesigning it right now, so it might be a work in progress by the time you get there.
Thank you for being here tonight. It's been wonderful talking with you. And this has been another episode of The Right Stuff, part of TV Toastmasters. You can see on the screen how to contact Justin and Sara Lester about audiobook conversion and how to be a part of that artistic endeavor. Hope you've enjoyed this, and we look forward to talking to you next time.
Hi, I'm Phyllis Harmon. I'm a member of TV Toastmasters. In this club, we have an opportunity to practice speaking before the camera as well as running the equipment room. If you're interested in being interviewed on TV Toastmasters or becoming a member, please go to Toastmasters.org and look for us, or simply search for TV Toastmasters on the web.
Is your flame burning out, or do you need to spark your attitude? I'm Cheryl Roush, and I'm honored to serve as the district conference Friday night with a keynote presentation on Sparkletude, Fueling the Flames. I love the district conference theme, and it's Leadership on Fire. And Saturday morning, I'll also be presenting on that particular topic, and I look forward to seeing you. So make sure to register soon for your spring conference.